The email hit at 9:07 a.m. while I was mid-briefing with the entire security team. My screen was mirrored on the presentation wall when the notification banner slid across the top like a knife. Effective immediately, Olivia Bennett will transition into a training role for Mr. Andrew Rooney, Executive Leadership Track. Someone behind me muttered, "You've got to be kidding." I felt my face burn as 20 pairs of eyes read the message over my shoulder. Then the second line loaded. Pending trainer endorsement, Mr. Rooney will receive elevated clearance. My endorsement. The room went dead silent. And Andrew Rooney, standing in the doorway like he owned the entire building, gave me a small, satisfied nod. He'd been watching, waiting for this moment. They didn't warn me. They didn't ask me. They reassigned me publicly, in the middle of my own presentation about quarterly security improvements. The heat crawled up my neck as I realized what just happened. 6 years of building trust, respect, and expertise, and they demolished it with one email. What the hell just happened to me? Char actually clapped. The representative walked in behind Andrew with a bright smile, saying, "Let's all support this exciting transition for both Olivia and Andrew." Citing. My presentation screen still displayed the risk assessment model I'd built over 6 years, the same model that had prevented 3 major security breaches and saved the company millions. Andrew walked in, adjusted his expensive cufflinks, and took the chair at the head of the table. My chair. The one I'd earned through countless late nights and weekend emergencies. And people moved. They actually moved for him like he was royalty. "Don't worry," the HR rep continued cheerfully. "Olivia's expertise will ensure Andrew gets the best possible training for his executive track position." Executive track. The promotion I'd been promised 3 months ago. The one I'd been preparing for with policy updates and system redesigns. I watched my colleagues avoid eye contact. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked curious about the drama. But nobody looked surprised. Which meant they knew. They all knew this was coming, and nobody warned me. My name is Olivia Bennett, and I am the Senior Security Operations Analyst at one of the largest private infrastructure firms in the region. Was the Senior Security Operations Analyst, apparently. I built our clearance architecture from scratch. Every security tier, every audit trigger, every silent safeguard that keeps sensitive data protected. 6 years of proving I belonged in a male-dominated field. 6 years of being the person they called during emergencies. 6 years of staying late to fix problems nobody else understood. And in 6 seconds, I was repositioned as a trainer for the CEO's cousin. Andrew Rooney had arrived 3 weeks ago with 0 security experience and a business degree from his uncle's alma mater. His resume listed leadership potential and family values as qualifications. No technical background. No security certifications. No understanding of the systems he was about to enter. But he had the right last name. The CEO's sister had married into the Rooney family, making Andrew the golden boy who could do no wrong. I'd watched him charm his way through introductions, promising revolutionary changes to outdated processes he'd never studied. After the meeting dissolved into uncomfortable murmurs, Andrew stopped beside my desk. "Don't take it personally," he said quietly, straightening his tie. "This is just how leadership pipelines work. You'll still be valuable in a training capacity." Leadership pipeline. Like I was plumbing that needed replacing. He smiled like he thought that softened the blow, like his casual dismissal of my career was somehow generous. It wasn't. "I'm sure we'll work great together," he continued, picking up the security manual from my desk. "Though some of this looks pretty outdated. When was this last updated?" He flipped through pages I'd rewritten just last month. "We might want to streamline these processes. Make them more efficient." I watched him handle my work like it was amateur hour. The manual he was criticizing had been adopted by 3 other companies as the industry standard. "I updated those procedures 4 weeks ago," I said calmly. "They're current with all federal compliance requirements." He nodded dismissively. "Right, but there's always room for improvement. Fresh eyes, you know. Fresh eyes that had never seen a security audit or handled a data breach. Fresh eyes that didn't understand the difference between access controls and user permissions. 3 months earlier, my director had pulled me aside during the quarterly review. "You're next in line for the promotion," he'd said confidentially. "The board loves your work. Keep doing what you're doing." I'd believed him. I'd updated policies, ran security simulations, and stayed until midnight rewriting risk response protocols. I'd prepared presentation materials for board meetings I thought I'd be attending as the new director. I'd even started researching advanced certifications for my expanded role. During those late nights, I'd redesigned our entire clearance escalation system. The old version was functional but basic. My new version included behavioral monitoring, automated compliance checks, and silent audit triggers that could catch insider threats before they caused damage. I'd built something revolutionary. Something that could identify security risks through user behavior patterns rather than just access violations. It was elegant, invisible, and completely undetectable to anyone who didn't know it existed. Now HR couldn't even look me in the eye when they asked about my enthusiasm for the training role. Andrew arrived 20 minutes late for our first training session. No notebook, no questions, just confidence radiating from his designer suit. He settled into the chair across from me like he was granting me an audience. "So how fast can we move this along?" he asked, checking his expensive watch. "I've got lunch with the executive team, and I'd like to have basic access sorted before then." Basic access. The kind that took most people 6 weeks to earn through comprehensive training and testing. "Speed isn't how security works," I explained, opening the training manual. "Each clearance level has specific requirements and—" "Right, but I'm not most people," he interrupted with a laugh. "I mean, we both know this is more of a formality than actual training." "I'll be fine." I studied his face. The casual arrogance. The assumption that rules didn't apply to him. The complete disregard for processes that protected millions of dollars in sensitive data. "Security protocols exist for everyone," I said carefully. "No exceptions." He leaned back in his chair, already bored. "Look, Olivia, I appreciate the thoroughness, but let's be realistic. How hard can it be?" HR called me in the next morning. The representative sat behind her desk with a manila folder, trying to look serious. "You understand the optics here, Olivia. This transition needs to go smoothly." Ticks. Corporate speak for, "Shut up and do what you're told." I sat across from her, maintaining professional composure while my career crumbled around me. "You mean the nepotism?" asked directly. The rep stiffened like I'd slapped her. "Because that's what people are calling it. The CEO's cousin gets fast-tracked while qualified employees get demoted." "That's not." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "That's not how we see this situation. Andrew brings unique leadership qualities that complement your technical expertise. Unique leadership qualities, like being related to the boss. And if I refuse the training assignment?" "Yes." Her smile became strained. "Let's focus on being professional about this transition. The company values your contribution in this new capacity." I nodded slowly. "I understand." And I did. I understood that refusing meant being pushed out entirely. I understood that my 6 years of expertise meant nothing compared to family connections. But I also understood something they didn't. What Andrew didn't know about my security system. Clearance escalation automatically triggers behavioral analysis protocols. Excessive override attempts activate detailed observation logs. Failed compliance checks generate audit trails that can't be deleted. And one safeguard I'd built, Protocol 7, mirrors elevated access inside a completely monitored environment. It doesn't stop unauthorized actions. It documents them. Every single one with timestamps and context. It was my masterpiece of invisible security. Users think they're accessing real executive-level systems, but they're actually operating in a behavioral analysis sandbox. Every decision gets recorded, analyzed, and compared against security best practices. I designed it to catch insider threats and prevent corporate espionage. Employees with legitimate access would never trigger it because they followed proper procedures. But someone cutting corners, ignoring warnings, or pushing boundaries would activate intensive monitoring without ever knowing it existed. The system was so advanced that even our IT director didn't fully understand how it worked. And I'd never mentioned it in any training documentation. I wasn't going to mention it to Andrew either. The CEO visited our department the next day, making his monthly rounds with forced casualness. He stopped at Andrew's temporary desk, and their conversation carried across the open office. "How's my future VP settling in?" The CEO's voice was warm with family affection. "Future VP. Not candidate, not possibility. Future VP." I felt my stomach drop as the implications sank in. "Great, Uncle Richard," Andrew replied confidently. "Though some of these security procedures are pretty outdated. I'm working with Olivia to streamline things." Streamline. Code for ignore inconvenient policies. The CEO nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of fresh thinking we need. Don't let bureaucracy slow you down." He patted Andrew's shoulder. "The board meeting next month will be perfect timing for your first presentation." Board presentation. The same presentation I'd been preparing for months. The one showcasing my security improvements and risk reduction strategies. Now Andrew would be presenting my work as his vision for the future. I bent over my keyboard, typing meaningless code while my career plans evaporated. But something else was crystallizing. Quiet determination. If Andrew wanted to bypass security protocols, he'd discover exactly what those protocols were designed to catch. HR emailed me a pre-filled endorsement template later that afternoon. The subject line read, "Recommendation for Andrew Rooney Executive Clearance." All I had to do was sign my name and submit it. One signature would fast-track him into systems containing our most sensitive client data. My hands hovered over the keyboard as I read the template. It recommended Andrew for Level 3 clearance based on comprehensive training completion and demonstrated competence in security protocols. Neither of which was true. But policies don't bend for signatures or family connections. They react to behavior. And Andrew's behavior was exactly what my hidden protocols were designed to monitor. I clicked sign and submitted the recommendation. Not because I approved of his elevation, but because I needed him to have enough access to hang himself. Level 3 clearance would give him access to the behavioral monitoring sandbox. Every shortcut he took, every warning he ignored, every protocol he violated would be recorded in perfect detail. The system would build an unshakable case without any input from me. I just had to let Andrew be Andrew. Andrew didn't disappoint. He skipped required training modules, claiming they were too basic for someone with his background. He skipped compliance simulations, saying they wasted time on unrealistic scenarios. Within 3 days, he submitted a direct tier jump request, trying to move from Level 1 to Level 4 clearance without completing intermediate requirements. Aggressive. Entitled. And exactly what activates Protocol 7. "These training requirements are excessive," he complained during our second session. "I need access to executive reports for the board presentation. Can't you just expedite the process?" I pulled up his training progress on my screen. 12 modules untouched. 0 compliance tests completed. No security scenarios attempted. "The requirements exist for data protection," I explained. "Sensitive information requires." "Look," he interrupted. "We both know I'm going to get the access anyway. Why not save everyone time and approve me now?" His directness was almost refreshing. Most people pretended to care about security procedures. Andrew openly admitted he considered them obstacles. "I can't override system requirements," I said truthfully. He smiled like he had a secret. "We'll see about that." Andrew's new clearance activated the next morning, just as I'd planned. He thought he was exploring executive-level controls and accessing sensitive reports. In reality, Protocol 7 had activated the moment he logged in. Every click, every file access, Every administrative action was being recorded in a completely separate monitoring system. He didn't know his access wasn't what he thought it was. The interface looked identical to the real executive dashboard, but it was actually a perfect replica designed to study user behavior. Every document he opened was a monitored copy. Every system he modified was a sandbox test environment. The real executive systems remained untouched and secure while Andrew played with toys that looked real but carried no actual authority. It was beautiful in its simplicity. He could click and modify to his heart's content while the system mapped every decision he made, every shortcut, every ignored warning, every protocol violation. Meanwhile, I maintained perfect professional distance. I arrived on time, completed my assigned training duties, and documented our sessions with bureaucratic precision. Nothing in my behavior suggested anything other than reluctant compliance with HR's directive. The first serious deviation came within 48 hours. Andrew disabled a monitoring alert because it kept pinging when he accessed files without proper authorization codes. "This is just noise," he muttered, clicking the disable button. "Who needs constant notifications?" Flagged by Protocol 7. Timestamp recorded. Context captured. Next, he rerouted a reporting chain so financial summaries went directly to him instead of through the compliance review process. No audit notification, no supervisor approval. Just a casual reorganization of established procedures. Logged by Protocol 7. Risk level escalated. Then he approved a permissions request from a junior analyst without dual verification or background checks. The request looked legitimate, but proper procedure required two-person approval for any access modifications. Highlighted by Protocol 7. Pattern analysis initiated. I didn't intervene. I didn't warn him. I simply sat at my desk, maintaining training schedules and documenting every conversation for my official reports. But privately, I watched the behavioral analysis compile evidence that would make any security audit inspector salivate. By Friday, Andrew stormed over to my desk with barely controlled frustration. "Why am I getting constant compliance pings?" he demanded. "Every time I try to access something, the system throws up warnings and approval requests." "Because you're triggering them," I replied calmly, not looking up from my computer screen. "The compliance system activates when users attempt unauthorized actions." He leaned in close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne. "Are you trying to make me look incompetent? 'Cause that's what this feels like. I can't get basic work done with all these security roadblocks." I finally looked up and met his stare. His face was flushed with anger and embarrassment. "No, Andrew. You're doing that yourself. Excuse me. The system treats everyone the same. It responds to behavior, not personalities. If you're getting warnings, it's because you're attempting actions that violate established protocols." I kept my voice level and professional. "I don't control what the system flags." He straightened up, clearly not used to being contradicted. "We'll see about that," he muttered, walking back to his desk. But we both knew the truth. He was failing, and there was no one to blame but himself. Monday morning brought a development I hadn't anticipated. The behavioral deviation metrics crossed the threshold that triggered automatic board-level visibility. I discovered this when my computer displayed a discrete notification. Executive oversight activated. Behavioral analysis report generated. No names in the automated report. Just data. Risk scores, compliance violations, and pattern analysis. But data doesn't lie. And the data painted a picture of someone systematically ignoring security protocols while accessing sensitive systems. The beauty of automated reporting was its objectivity. No personal grudges, no office politics, just mathematical analysis of user behavior compared against established baselines. Andrew had managed to set off every alarm in the system within 1 week of receiving elevated clearance. I printed a copy of the automated report for my files. 17 separate violations. 9 unauthorized access attempts. 4 compliance bypasses. All time-stamped, all documented, all generated by systems he didn't know were watching him. The report would go directly to the compliance board, with copies to executive leadership and legal. Andrew's future VP status was about to encounter some uncomfortable questions. HR called Andrew in for an unexpected review session Tuesday afternoon. I wasn't invited, which was interesting. Usually trainers were included in trainee evaluations. His exclusion suggested this wasn't about training performance. I watched him walk into the HR office with his usual confidence, straightening his tie and checking his reflection in the glass door. 40 minutes later, he emerged looking considerably less assured. His jaw was tight, and he avoided eye contact with everyone as he returned to his desk. "They're overreacting," he muttered as he passed my workstation. "Acting like every security warning is a federal case. It's ridiculous. But the system doesn't overreact. It records facts and analyzes patterns. If HR was concerned enough to call an emergency review, the automated reports had probably flagged behavior patterns that suggested potential security risks." I maintained professional sympathy. "Security reviews can be stressful," I offered diplomatically. "Is there anything specific you'd like to review in tomorrow's training session?" He shot me a look that could have melted steel. "No. I think I understand the system perfectly now." Instead of slowing down and following procedures, Andrew escalated. Wednesday morning, he submitted an override request that attempted to bypass the entire recommendation hierarchy. He wanted direct approval from the CEO's office for expanded system access. That triggered forensic trace activation, a security protocol so advanced that even I had only seen it activated twice in 6 years. When the override request hit executive review, Protocol 7 automatically generated a comprehensive behavioral audit covering every digital action Andrew had taken since receiving his clearance. The forensic trace was unavoidable and irreversible. Once activated, it would compile a complete record of user behavior and generate recommendations for appropriate security responses. There was no hiding from it, no family connection that could make it disappear. I watched the discrete warning light appear on my security monitoring dashboard. Most people wouldn't recognize its significance, but I knew it meant the system had escalated Andrew's case to the highest level of scrutiny possible. The golden boy was about to discover that automated security systems don't care about family relationships. They only care about protecting data. The pressure began showing in Andrew's behavior. He started snapping at staff members who couldn't answer his questions fast enough. He blamed IT for system glitches when compliance warnings appeared. He blamed audit for outdated policies when his access requests were denied. "These systems are prehistoric," he complained loudly during a team meeting. "We need to modernize everything and eliminate unnecessary bureaucracy." Unnecessary bureaucracy like the security protocols that had prevented 3 major data breaches in the past 2 years. He stopped smiling at colleagues. People stopped moving out of his way in the hallway. The shift in office dynamics was subtle but unmistakable. His golden boy status was tarnishing in real time. I watched from my desk as his frustration mounted. Every failed override attempt generated another flag in his behavioral analysis file. Every complaint about outdated systems was recorded as resistance to established security procedures. The forensic audit was building a case against him using his own words and actions. All I had to do was stay professional, complete my training duties, and let the system work exactly as I designed it to. Thursday brought the call Andrew had been dreading. The CEO requested a private executive session to discuss security concerns that have come to the board's attention. Andrew walked into that meeting with forced confidence, but emerged 30 minutes later looking pale and shaken. I learned later that the forensic audit had compiled 11 documented deviations from security protocols for unauthorized override attempts, and 2 clear policy violations, all within 10 days of receiving elevated clearance. The automated reporting system had presented Andrew's behavioral patterns alongside data from other employees with similar clearance levels. The comparison was devastating. While typical users averaged 0.2 security warnings per month, Andrew had generated 23 warnings in 10 days. The board didn't need to understand technical details. They understood liability risks and potential legal exposure. Andrew had demonstrated patterns consistent with insider threat profiles, and the system had detected it automatically. No personal vendettas, no office politics, just mathematical analysis proving that Andrew represented a security risk to the entire organization. Friday morning, Andrew tried to shift blame. He requested a meeting with the compliance director and accused me of sabotaging his access attempts. I think Olivia has been undermining my training because she's upset about the reassignment, he claimed. The compliance director asked one simple question. Did she alter the security framework or modify any system protocols? Silence. Because the answer was no, and everyone knew it. I had followed every procedure exactly as written. I had provided comprehensive training documentation. I had submitted his clearance recommendations precisely when requested. Andrew had failed within a system that treated him exactly like every other employee. The protocols he'd violated were the same ones that protected everyone else. The warnings he'd ignored were generated by automated systems that responded to behavior, not personalities. The security framework operates independently, I explained calmly. It flags violations regardless of who commits them. I don't control what triggers compliance warnings. The compliance director nodded. The behavioral analysis supports that conclusion. Mr. Rooney's patterns are consistent with someone who doesn't understand or respect established security procedures. Desperation drove Andrew to attempt one final override on Friday afternoon. He submitted an unauthorized request for expanded visibility into client financial data, claiming it was necessary for his board presentation. The request bypassed proper approval channels and attempted to access systems far beyond his clearance level. That triggered Protocol 7's ultimate escalation. Full behavioral audit with automatic executive notification. There was no shielding this level of security response. Not even family connections could protect him from the forensic analysis that would follow. I watched the executive alert generate automatically. TO notification. Board member alerts. Legal department flagging. Compliance director urgent review. The system had classified Andrew as a potential insider threat requiring immediate attention. The irony was perfect. His desperation to prove himself worthy of executive status had generated the exact evidence needed to disqualify him permanently. Every shortcut he'd taken, every warning he'd ignored, every protocol he'd violated was now part of an official security incident report. The golden boy had built his own cage. The board reconvened Monday morning, this time without any celebration or family warmth. The compliance director presented the forensic audit results to executive leadership, and the conclusions were unambiguous. Nepotism was survivable. Companies dealt with family hires all the time. But security liability wasn't acceptable. Andrew had demonstrated patterns that regulatory auditors would classify as high-risk behavior. The company couldn't afford to have someone with executive access who consistently violated security protocols. The decision was swift and decisive. Executive track candidacy suspended indefinitely. Security clearance downgraded to basic employee level. All elevated access revoked effective immediately. I learned about the decision through official channels, the same way everyone else did. A company-wide email announcing organizational adjustments to ensure optimal security compliance. Professional language that meant Andrew's fast track to executive leadership had derailed completely. His uncle, the CEO, had no choice but to support the board's decision. The forensic audit provided mathematical proof that Andrew represented a security risk. Protecting him would have exposed the entire company to regulatory scrutiny and potential legal liability. Security personnel met Andrew at his desk Tuesday morning. I watched from across the office as they deactivated his badge and revoked his system access with professional efficiency. No drama, no arguments, just clinical procedure. People didn't stare, but they watched quietly. The Golden Boy's fall was complete and public. Andrew looked at me once during the process. No arrogance, no smirk, just disbelief. For the first time in his privileged life, he wasn't protected by family connections. His designer suits and expensive watch couldn't shield him from the consequences of his own actions. The system had treated him exactly like any other security risk, and family relationships couldn't override mathematical evidence. He packed his personal belongings into a cardboard box while security waited. The same box that would have held his executive nameplate and director-level access cards if he'd simply followed the procedures everyone else managed to complete successfully. As he walked toward the elevator, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction but professional validation. The system worked exactly as designed. Justice wasn't personal, it was mathematical. The CEO called me into his office Wednesday afternoon. No audience, no ceremony. Just a quiet conversation behind closed doors. He looked older than I remembered, and tired in a way that expensive suits couldn't hide. "I underestimated the complexity of what you built," he said carefully, gesturing toward a printed copy of the forensic audit report. "This security framework. It's more sophisticated than I realized." Not an apology, but acknowledgement. "The behavioral analysis systems are designed to be invisible," I replied. "Most users never trigger them because they follow established procedures." He nodded slowly. "The board has been discussing restructuring. Security operations have become too critical to operate under traditional departmental hierarchies." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "They've recommended that security report directly to executive oversight." I waited, maintaining professional composure while my heart raced. "Under you. As Director of Security Operations." The promotion I'd been preparing for. The position I'd earned through 6 years of expertise, not family connections. "I appreciate the board's confidence," I replied diplomatically. "Olivia," he said quietly, "I'm sorry about how this situation developed. Andrew is family, but that doesn't excuse what happened to you." 2 weeks later, I signed my official promotion letter. Director of Security Operations, reporting directly to executive leadership. The same position Andrew had been fast-tracked for, now mine through demonstrated competence instead of family connections. My first executive decision was implementing mandatory security training for all employees with elevated clearance. No exceptions, no shortcuts, no family exemptions. The same protocols that caught Andrew would ensure everyone understood the importance of following established procedures. I never destroyed Andrew. I simply let the system work as designed. His arrogance collided with structure, and mathematics determined the outcome. Personal feelings never entered the equation. Andrew never contacted me after leaving the company. Through office gossip, I heard he'd found a position at a smaller firm where his family connections held more weight. Whether he learned from the experience remained to be seen. But I learned something important that day. Sometimes the best revenge isn't personal at all. Sometimes it's simply building systems strong enough to reveal character under pressure, then stepping back and letting people prove exactly who they are. You don't need to destroy someone. You just need to let their choices have consequences. And then you rise quietly on the foundation you built yourself, one protocol at a time.